Yes, team, good morning and welcome to our usual Monday morning session. So, as always, I start every single mindset session with if you are not running this process, which I've run you through time and time again, each and every morning, and I will say it over and over and over and over again until it sinks in, then you're missing a trick on being happy. Every single morning, we have to wake up and go through the process of I am already wealthy. I already have enough. I already am enough. Wealth is nothing more than a feeling of abundance triggered by gratitude. If you roll out of bed each and every morning and think about the things you haven't got, why you're not where you want to be, why you're not good enough, who's letting you down, who's upset you, what went wrong last week, what's going to plan, I guarantee you that will trigger a snowball effect that will start Monday in the worst possible place. And it's a difficult thing to do this because we all want more, right? That's why you're here. And thank you for valuing yourself high enough to be here this morning. That's your first win of the day. You got up, it's 8 o'clock, it's Monday morning, you're working on your mindset. But in order to learn how to continue to upscale our own happiness, we have to start, and I do this every morning by going outside, of realizing that we are already enough, we already have enough, and it's okay to want more. But if we're only ever focusing on what we don't have and what we want, whilst focusing on what we want is important, we're always going to feel like we're not good enough. Like, why don't I have the body I want yet? Why don't I have the car that I want yet? Why don't I have the relationship that I want yet? Why don't I have the house that I want? Why don't I have the mindset I want? Because we all want these things, but if that's where all the focus is, and not appreciating things like the house we do have, the car we do have, the fact that we already have more than most, the people we do love, the fact that we can enjoy holidays, freedom of choice, freedom to exercise, freedom to eat what we want. We all of us already have more than probably 70% of the world. And that needs to be respected and appreciated every morning. And it's the best way to start the day. So what I'm going to run through today, there's still only very few people have replied to my email asking you what's the number one thing you need help with, and that is what Thursday's training is going to be based on. So please do reply to it if you can, okay? Like I said, I don't need chapter and verse. I just need, this is my number one struggle in 1 or 2 sentences. That's it. That's all I need to know. Or if you could solve one problem for me, Lee, in 1 or 2 sentences, this was what it would be. Imagine there's 100 plus people. So I don't need paragraphs and paragraphs, so just keep it short and concise, because this is for you as well. You don't need to, which funnily enough, coming into overwhelm is the first thing that I'm going to talk about. We just need to get clear on the one thing that we need to fix one at a time, okay? So, preventing overwhelm, because everybody struggles with overwhelm. The people who you think are the most successful in the world and probably never struggle, trust me, struggle with overwhelm. So, building into what I just said, that's exactly what overwhelm is. So if you send me an email, which is chapter and verse, and you list out hundreds of things and everything that you're struggling with, and it goes on and on and on and on and on, it's going to be very difficult for you to solve it. Because this is why I wrote the email in a specific way. What's the one thing we need to fix? What's the one struggle we need to solve first? Not the 2, not the 3, not the 10, not the life story, just the one. Because overwhelm is an inability to focus on one thing at a time until we've completed it. Whether that's something on your list for your business, something on your list for changing the house, something if you've just moved house, and like the whole one box, how when you move into a house, I've experienced that 3 times in the last 2 years, when your entire life is in boxes and you're looking at your entire life in boxes And this is a great analogy, and you're thinking, where on earth do you start? One box at a time, one room at a time. It's that simple. But if you're looking at the overall thing, you're going to feel stressed and overwhelmed. That's going to lead to procrastination and inaction, and nothing will get done. It's the exact same analogy as running 200 miles. How did I run 200 miles? 1 mile at a time. If I thought about the 200 miles, I never would have done it. Okay, and the other great analogy that I absolutely love, and I don't recommend that anyone does this because it really won't help your fat loss goals, but how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. You can't eat a whole elephant at once. But eventually, if you ate an elephant over a very, very long period of time, one bite at a time, you would eat the whole elephant. Now, overwhelm, stress, anxiety, fear are the emotions of growth. So what I want you to do is, one, I want you to understand they're not who you are. You are not a person who is afraid. You are not a person who is stressed. You are not a person who is depressed. You're not a person who is afraid. You're not a person who struggles with self-doubt, confidence, motivation, self-belief, or any of those things. You are not that person. Those things are emotions. They are states. And more importantly, they are warning lights. So you should respect them and appreciate them and treat them as a wake-up call. If something doesn't feel right, that's the warning light on the dashboard. So be grateful for it and appreciate it. You won't grow in life without facing challenge. You won't grow without stress, anxiety, worry, overwhelm, fear, self-doubt, lack of motivation, lack of confidence. You won't grow without going through them because they are the emotions of growth. But what you need to understand is it's a very difference between it's a wake-up call. So imagine this, and I've used this analogy before. I've used the analogy of either the rumble strip on the motorway, or I've used the analogy of the warning light on the dashboard. You need to be grateful for it, right? Imagine if you had a car and no warning lights ever came on. Well, the car would just break down and you'd never have had the opportunity to fix it. Imagine if a motorway didn't have a rumble strip or didn't have lanes, then you'd crash all the time because you wouldn't have the reminder that something's wrong and you need to get back on track. So appreciate negative emotions, but treat them as a gift and a wake-up call. Right, I'm feeling this way, something needs to change. I'm starting to gain weight again. I've probably started to eat too much. I'm starting to feel a bit low energy. I've probably started drinking at the weekends again. I'm starting to feel negative all the time. I've probably stopped practicing gratitude. Very often it's not, when you're feeling a certain way, which is negative, it's very often not that you need to do something else. It's that you've stopped doing what was working before you started feeling that way. You've stopped running so consistently. You've stopped tracking food consistently. You've started drinking more. You've stopped doing your mindset work every day. You've stopped planning. You've stopped scheduling. You've stopped checking in. You've stopped asking for help. You know, very often it's just something that you've stopped doing, not something new that you need to put in. But you need to know the difference between gratitude of a wake-up call and, oh my God, this is a curse, this is a disaster, I'm not good enough, it's a total meltdown, everything's going wrong again. No, everything's not going wrong again. The universe is saying, hey, you've stopped doing that thing that was working. Let's get back on track. This thing that you had started fixing, you've gone back to the old you. This is what happens when most people struggle. They'd started moving forward and then they go back to the old them. This is what happens when almost, like, it's probably upwards of 700 people in the last 4 or 5 years that have returned to this coaching plan. And that tells me two things. One, it tells me the coaching plan is great and it makes me feel good, because something that I struggle with personally is, why did they leave in the first place? Was it my fault? Could I have delivered more? Do they not value my coaching? No, it was because the person had chose to go back to their old self. This is what a peer group is. This is what having a coach is. Coaches hold you accountable. And sometimes the accountability gets too much for people, and seeing other people succeed, seeing other people smashing it in the WhatsApp group or anywhere starts to trigger them because they're not doing the work. They actually get triggered by positivity. So they want to run away from it. This is why some people are negative towards you when you start smashing it, because you're holding up a mirror of what they are not doing. So rather than say, oh shit, I need to get back on track, they'll leave the peer group, they'll go back to their old peer group, back to their old standards, back to their old self, until the pain gets so bad that they need to make change again, rather than going, hey, that was a warning light. Somebody and something is telling me here that I need to change to get back on track. But very often, people lower their standards to deal with overwhelm. They sedate, they start drinking again, they self-soothe, they go back to people that tell them it's okay, they go back to the old peer group, they disappear. They do the kid thing where they go and hide in the bedroom. My mindset's struggling. I'm not exercising. I'm not tracking my food. I'm gaining weight. I feel like shit. Do I ask for help? No, I'll just go and run and hide until it gets so bad that I need to again, rather than being pulled from inspiration until it's that bad that I have to be pushed by desperation or pain. So we can only really be overwhelmed as well when we're thinking about either too far in the future or too many things at once. This is why that question on the planner is so critically important. What's today's single most important task? Ask yourself honestly, out of the last 31 days, did you genuinely get up and write down what's today's single most important task and what are the next 3 most important tasks? If you didn't, congratulations, you just had a lesson as to why you're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, because you're focusing on too many things at once. And when you focus on too many things at once, and when you focus on too far in the future, you're setting something up that's impossible to do because you're too far-fetched, there's too many things, you're only one person, and then what mindset do we revert back to? I'm not good enough, I don't have enough time, I'm not strong enough, I'm not clever enough, I don't get it, there's not enough opportunity, I'm going to fail, scarcity. Then the fear comes in. Oh, everyone's going to mock me, everyone's going to judge me, everyone's going to laugh at me, I tried to do it again and I failed, all because I fell into the trap of focusing on too many things at once, focusing on too far in the future, focusing on the weight that I haven't lost, focusing on the weight that I need to lose, but thinking about the 20 pounds rather than the first pound. But you have to understand, overwhelm, you can use it as a positive habit, because overwhelm occurs when change is needed. Stress occurs when change is needed. Worry occurs when change is needed. So appreciate them, because they're the warning lights. But here's where it can go wrong. You can either say, right, I'm overwhelmed here. What have I started doing wrong? What have I stopped doing? What do I need to change? Right, there's too many things on this list. Let's fuck that list off and make one that's got one thing on that I need to do now. Get that done, celebrate the win, move forward. Then if I have time, I'll move on to the next 3. Right, let's focus on the training and the nutritional tracking that I need to do this week. not the pound that I need to lose before jumping on the scales and then feeling low self-worth because I didn't lose the pound. Focus on the process, not the prize. Focus on the journey, not the outcome. If we all become too destination focused, then we never feel like we're good enough, because the destination isn't in our control, the action is. But the dangerous thing with overwhelm is when we don't use it as the wake-up call to change, then we start to use it as the excuse for not doing the work, and then it leading back to procrastination. I can't do it, I'm too overwhelmed, I'm too stressed, I'm too busy. You know, people say this to me all the time, either when they're leaving this plan or when they're making another bullshit excuse for not joining the plan. One of two groups of people. I'm too busy. Oh, great. Show me your plan. Oh, you don't have one. Or you do have one, but it's a really bad plan with too many things on it that aren't valuable and aren't important. Okay? Again, people do this when they decide to leave coaching plans. I can't do it because I'm too overwhelmed. So the one thing that's going to help me feel less overwhelmed, less stressed, and have higher self-worth, which is working on my mental health, working on my fitness, working on my nutrition, and working on my mindset. I tell you what I'll do. I'll take all of that away, and I'll just think that maybe that'll be the answer to me feeling less busy and less overwhelmed. It won't. It will compound the problem, which will bring me very nicely onto coming onto the compound effect. But you're not too overwhelmed. You're challenged. You're scared. You've started drinking again, so your energy's lower. You started worrying again because you haven't been doing mindset, so you're struggling with uncertainty. You've stopped doing the work, so of course you're going to fail. So then you use fear of failure as an excuse. Overwhelm becomes the excuse, not the warning light to take action. So when you experience any of these emotions, right? Any negative emotions, you have two roads to go down. You go, right, this is a wake-up call. What do I need to start doing that I've stopped doing, and what do I need to change? Or you go down the other road, I'll use all these negative emotions as an excuse as to why I can't do it, why I can't show up, why I can't do the work, why I'm not good enough, why it's different for me. And you go back to your old story. But what I want you to understand is all of these are the emotions of growth, because they're the wake-up call to do the thing that's going to make you grow. Okay? But they're states and emotions that change and are forever changing, and they will feel different on different days. But what I want you to understand is they're real, but they're not real. Random comment, right? How can you say they're real, but they're not real? They're real, but they're not real because they're real as in you experience them, but they're not an illness or an injury. This neck and this arm, which doesn't work very well, is a real thing. I can't change it. I'm not in control of it. I can't master it. But I can master my emotions. Fear isn't real. I can control it. Any of those emotions aren't illnesses. You don't have them. They're an emotional state that you're experiencing, and they are a sign to change. So you can accept that sign and that gift that you need to change, or you can use them as an excuse to procrastinate and not take action. That's all it is. They're not illnesses. They're states, they're emotions. I've said this before. You cannot have depression. You cannot have anxiety. You can experience both of them to a fatal level. So don't think that I'm not treating them seriously. I am. But they're not illnesses. They're emotions. And emotions can be controlled and changed if we're willing to accept the wake-up call and change. It's bad mind management if we don't. So there's a few things that overwhelm, stress, anxiety, and all of these things are a symptom of, or a sign of, shall we say. One, you've stopped being clear on your priorities. Your priorities have become watching the football, getting pissed, taking time off, going out every weekend, eating crap, not going to the gym, rather than your priorities of tracking food every day, making sure I eat healthy, doing mindset work every day, practicing gratitude, or different priorities. You're not clear on what you actually want, how you want your life to look, where you want to go. So you don't have the destination. So of course you feel lost. And when you feel lost, you feel overwhelmed because you don't know where you're going. It's like saying, I'm going to go to London today. And if anyone can do this, great. But without a map, without a sat nav, you just set off from somewhere in Yorkshire and you try and find your way to London. What would happen? You'd get lost very quickly. You'd feel stressed. You'd feel overwhelmed. You're not clear on your priorities. You're not clear on your route. So the second symptom of overwhelm is you're not clear on your values. You've forgotten what you value the most. And we have to get clear on this. So go back last week and watch the training on leading your best life. I think it was episode 2, which was the key to leading your best life is your values. The next one is you think that you have to do all of the things all at once, all of yourself, and that there's a huge urgency and everything has to be done and achieved right now. And if not, you're not good enough. So those are the main things. But being shit at prioritizing and understanding your values doesn't mean you have a mental health problem. It means you're not very good at understanding your priorities and your strategy and your values. So get clear on what your priorities are. Get clear on what your values are. Get clear on what today's single most important job is. Get clear on where you're going. When you know exactly where you're going and you know exactly what you need to do and you have a plan, that's what creates clarity. That's what creates calmness. That's what reduces stress. Shrink everything down. Kieran's there, TMP. He was the big person that taught me this. Zoom out, Lee. Zoom out. And I'll always remember him saying it to him, because I started assessing everything. And you guys do this, like whether it's fat loss, whether it's financial, whether it's your goals, we start valuing ourselves on a 1 week period or a week to week or even a month to month. And you're not going to improve in all areas of your life every single month, month on month on month on month. If you did, you'd look like Arnold Schwarzenegger and be a multi-billionaire within the next 4 years because you'd get better every single week. We don't do that. Not even every month. Some people not even every year. Many people not even every quarter. And this is massive with business people. They start to value their business. It's massive with you guys with fat loss. You value yourself every single week on what the scales say. Week on week on week on week. Not forgetting that that week wasn't really a great week and then you can't understand why things haven't changed. But if you actually zoomed out across 6 months, I'd moved forward. And if I moved forward another 6 months exactly like that, and another 6 months exactly like that, actually all of a sudden, this thing's looking quite rosy. This thing's looking quite cool. Which brings me on to the little bit which I'm going to finish today's training on. Just to revisit the compound effect story. I've got about 23 more points on this training, which will build kind of the next month worth of trainings. But if you haven't read it, go back and read it. Not just my trainings that are in the Facebook group, but the actual full book by Darren Hardy called The Compound Effect. It's also, I did an hour kind of overview of the whole compound effect, which was in the mindset course, which is in the group. Okay. So the great analogy that he uses is, if you ask most people, what would you like right now? £3 million in cash, or would you like 1 penny that doubles every day for the next 31 days? I'm going to cut the story short, but obviously instantly the mind goes, I'll take the 3 million quid. Who wouldn't want 3 million quid right now? I would. But the penny doubled every day for 31 days doesn't really do a lot to start with. Day 5, 16p. Day 10, £10. Day 20, £5,233. By day 31, it's over £10 million. 3 times what you would have got if you would have taken the money straight away. So this applies to life. It's consistency over time, which is important, but also not beating yourself up when you've had a bad couple of weeks. Imagine my mind at the minute, right? I've had the worst 6 weeks of my life. I'm medicated out of my fucking brains on 150 milligrams of pregabalin per day, up to 240 milligrams of codeine per day. I haven't trained at all. I haven't lifted any weights. I feel like I'm losing every single bit of muscle that I've ever built. I feel like my fitness is going to rat shit. I feel like I've held my abs so far, but very soon, unless I start living on dust and air every day, I'm going to start to get fat. I feel like I'm never going to get the feeling back in this hand. Only this morning I picked up a can of Pepsi Max Cherry because I forgot and just dropped it all over the kitchen floor. The only plus side is that I actually can't open a packet of squashes on my own without a pair of scissors because I can't pull the plastic open. So imagine if I'm focusing on all of that. How am I going to feel right now? Like throwing myself off a fucking bridge with a big weight between my legs. That's how. So I have to keep training out of it and go, okay, let's zoom out. Okay, let's go back across the wins of the last 6 months of this year. And then I listed them all out and I'm like, do you know what? It's just 6 weeks out of 6 months. It's not that bad. And that's what we have to do. But we tend to just rate ourselves on the week before, the 4 weeks before, the 5 weeks before. And this applies to all areas of life. It's consistency over time, which is important. And to use a business example as well, there's points when I've had really bad parts in business when March hadn't beaten February and February hadn't beaten January and January hadn't beaten whatever. But then we zoomed out across 12 months. Oh, actually business was up 24%. It's a pretty good percentage over 9 months. But because we were looking at too small a period, you start to experience overwhelm, low self-worth, and not good enough, and all of that kind of stuff. And it comes into, again, revisit the training of delaying the instant need for gratification, because this is still something that a lot of people experience. But, you know, it applies to all areas of life, business, fat loss, fitness, and everything. Now, the other small story, which I'm going to end on for this to make sense. So, again, if you don't want to read the whole book of The Compound Effect, this is a great story. I'm going to try and get it right. It's quite a long story. I've made some notes. So basically, there's 3 best friends, right? Who are all in a very similar position. They all have the same upbringing. They all have very similar bodies. They all have very similar jobs, very similar incomes, very similar relationships. And this can be the impact of small changes. So they're all married. They're all starting to experience a little bit of middle-aged spread, shall we call it. They're all starting to feel a little bit down in the dumps. They're all starting to feel a little bit unhappy in their careers, a little bit lost in their relationships, and kind of shit. The warning lights on the dashboard have come on. I'm not okay. I've hit a rumble strip. I'm not feeling too good here. Something needs to change. So friend 1 does these small changes. She wakes up every day and does a 30-minute mindset, gratitude, personal development, personal growth session, working on herself, working on her mental health. She cuts out 125 calories per day. Not 300, not 400, not 500, 125 calories per day. And she adds in 5,000 steps per day. That's all friend 1 does. 30 minutes personal development, drops out 125 calories, walks 5,000 steps per day. Friend 2. Sorry, that was friend 2. Friend 1 did absolutely nothing. Sweet FA. Just carried on in exactly the same situation she was. Friend 2 did the 30 minutes personal development, cut the calories and did the steps. Friend 3 signed up to Netflix just so she can procrastinate a little bit away from the problems in her life, her career, her mindset and her relationships. Decided she was going to have a few drinks every weekend to self-soothe, self-sedate. Started buying things here and there in order to make herself feel better. And she started grabbing a latte and a croissant on the way to work every single day. Now, 5 months later, both people, not that much change. One was still feeling like crap. One was starting to feel a little bit better. And one was actually starting to feel a little bit worse. But then we work on 15 months, okay? Friend 1, still the same, still bitter, still reactive, still blaming, complaining, justifying, arguing with the husband every day, mardy and snappy with the kids, can't wait to tell everyone how busy she is, how much she hates her job, what she doesn't have and why life's different for her. The same story and subconscious patterns she's been probably running her whole life. Friend 2, she's 25 pounds down. She's now completed over 400 hours of personal development. She's got promotion at work. She's driven, she's focused, she's clear. She practices gratitude. She's healed all the problems in her relationship. She's become a role model to her kids. She's become an example, not a warning. Just from 12 months of those changes. But what about friend 3? She's 33 pounds up. She feels worse than ever. She's even more resentful of work. She's not even having sex with her husband anymore. All they do is argue. They're planning a divorce. They seem quite critical things, right? But all of those things are the response of just those small changes. And this is crazy to actually add these figures up, right? So if we think 365 days, this is what I mean about small changes, right? Let's even pick a different figure, 365 days. So 365 days times 200 calories, let's call that the latte. That's a calorie deficit of 73,000 calories across 12 months. But the scary thing is it works the other way. That one latte, or wow, what's the chocolate one that people have? Mochas. Is it a mocha? Cappuccino, I don't know. They're all around about 250 calories. That small thing, God, can't I even have a latte? It's not about the latte, it's about the little slip that will then probably lead to in the region of around 30 pounds of fat gain per year. The same way, the small thing would lead to 30 pounds of fat loss per day. So it's not the big things. It's not the big changes. It's not making the small changes will lead to massive decline over time due to the compound effect. And small changes, just the 30 minutes of personal development, just the small changes to the diet, just the walking the extra 5,000 steps per day, rather than, I do this, I'm going to be really honest now, trying to find the car parking space closest to the entrance to Tesco, closest to the sunbed shop, closest to the gym, and closest to pretty much everywhere else that I fucking go in life. We all do it, right? It's a subconscious pattern we've been running for years. Just that small changes of what if I tried to park as far away as I could and just walk that 2 or 3 minutes? Well, don't have the stress of going round and round and round trying to find the parking space. Those small changes over time add up to massive results. So stop beating yourself up. Stop stopping and stop starting. Stop thinking everything's wrong. Be more patient and work on those small changes. So if you're struggling today, if you're struggling with your mindset, what have you stopped doing? If you're struggling with your fat loss, what have you stopped doing and started doing? If you're struggling in your relationship, what have you started doing and stopped doing? And whatever you're experiencing right now, don't beat yourself up. Revert to the beginning of this video. You're already wealthy, you're already enough. Wealth is nothing more than a feeling of abundance triggered by growth. And if there's a little thing that's niggling at you, great, because that's the warning light on the dashboard. That's the rumble strip that it's time to change. And we either need to stop doing something that we've started doing or restart something that we've stopped doing. But it's the small changes over time that add up to massive results. Guys, have an awesome Monday. I love you all. Stay unbreakable.